Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Through the Pages. My name's Dee and today's video I will be discussing the books that I've read in January. Firstly, I'd like to explain that I am a woman who stays at home. I don't currently have a job. I watch quite a lot of booktube. I have a few booktubers who have influenced me, and watching their content I thought, well, why not give it a go? I don't really have anybody in my household who reads, sadly. They do on and off, but not as much as I'd like them to, not as much as I do. So I thought, well, I explained to them the stories that I've read, and they do enjoy it, and they listen to me, and actually they remember and they follow along with the story as I'm going through it and explaining it to them. But I wanted to form more of a community where we can share a story and know what's going on, rather than me telling it to you and you sitting there saying, oh yeah, that sounds good, yeah, oh right. I mean, I explain it quite well and my family seem to enjoy my explanations, but I actually want a community to talk to, and I think this is the place to do it. I've seen a lot of booktube videos and it seems to me that people do reach out, they do want to talk, so that's why I'm here. So should we get stuck in? Why not? So the first book I read in January, Christina Henry, Good Girls Don't Die. I really enjoyed this book. It's somewhat set within the perimeters of, I'd say, horror. It's not quite a horror book, but I'd say it's somewhat within the perimeters of horror. There's three main protagonists and it follows their individual stories of their surroundings and what they have to go through. I'm not going to go into it in too much depth because I don't obviously want to give anything away, because the purpose is obviously, if you fancy it, you read it and you figure out for yourself whether you enjoy it or not. I did thoroughly enjoy it, and the one thing that I enjoyed most about it was the empowered female. That's a very strong message that's given within this book, is the empowered female, and how, even fraught with danger, some females have it instilled within them to actually fight and survive. So it's the fight or flight, and that's the part of it that I loved, and the togetherness of the women. So give this one a read. I really enjoyed it. The next book I read, because I've seen all the films, every single one of them, at least 100 times. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Sadly, I've never actually read the books. I know, shame on me, bad D for not reading the books. However, this January, I read the first. Oh yes, that sticker. Yeah, it was an offer. That's why I got it. Sorry, we'll cover that. Come here, ignore that. So yeah, I got this book, read it. I loved the parts that weren't in the film. Surprisingly, I found it very interesting that there were parts within the story that obviously aren't put into the film. And that's going to be common, with a lot of books that you read that are then turned into films. But what I enjoyed most about this was there was a little bit more normalness to it, if that makes sense. A little bit more what you actually wanted in the film. There were certain parts where I wanted Ron or Harry to be a little bit more normal, to be a little bit more like a normal non-wizard person, so to where they would potentially fight back. That's in the book. So I was so impressed that that was in the book. I couldn't stop talking about it. That's how impressed I was. I kept telling everyone, it's actually in the book, believe it, it's in the book. So that's how much of an effect it had on me. I will keep reading them. I will do the Chamber of Secrets next. But I've been tempted by YouTube, especially Mike's book reviews, to read more into fantasy. So then I went for this. I know it's not the one that I should have read. It should have been, I think, is it Gilded? But I read Cursed because I had it. My daughter bought it because, like I said, she does occasionally read, but not often. So I read through this. I mean, how could I resist with those sprayed edges? It's a beautiful, beautiful paperback. So I did read it. It's the story of Rumpelstiltskin. The story was okay. I enjoyed it for the most part. The thing that impressed me the most, and I hope it's not a spoiler to anyone, was the section of the gay couple and how Rumpelstiltskin came about his name. I loved that. I absolutely loved that. I thought, what a thing to add into a modern day fantasy to include. I loved the inclusion in this book, and I loved the way Rumpelstiltskin within this tale got his name. So I enjoyed that. The next book I read, In the Blink of an Eye. Kind of science fiction-y, kind of fantasy, but altogether not that too far in our future, I would suggest. It's about artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence, sorry, that's a mouthful, AI, helping the police force. What I found most intriguing about this story was the two protagonists, one of them being artificial intelligence, the relationship that they form after everything that goes on. There's a lot going on, and to do with like a serial killer. But what happens to the female detective in this and how the AI helps her and the relationship that they form, I found that fascinating. I really, really enjoyed that. So I would definitely say give this book a go. I really would. Yeah, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. We all know, apparently, I don't really have TikTok. I may do in the future. I'm not much of a socialite where it comes to social media, but lessons in chemistry, brilliant. The only thing it did, because of the time that it's set in, was it brought out my inner feminist. Now, I'm not one who necessarily fights for women's rights, but this book kind of made me get a bit angry. Kind of made me seek my inner feminist and have a little bit of a rant about misogyny. My partner didn't overly enjoy that. My partner is a man. He didn't overly enjoy that, but I did because this book brought it out in me. But it is a fantastic story, a fantastic story. One of my favourite characters in the book is the dog. Now, I'm not giving too much more away. The inner monologues do nothing but help, absolutely help this story. The inner monologues are amazing. I loved it. Like I said, I'm not going to give too much away. I presume a lot of people have already read it anyway because it's been given such high praise and it's worth every bit of it. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. So yeah, good on you. I love that one. Then, because of Mike's Books reviews and because of Philip Chase and AP, I then went on to John Gwynne. Now, this is a copy that hasn't been read or touched. Brand new, hasn't even been touched. But I have the original for all here, what I've actually read. This is because I bought the first two. I bought Malice and Valor. And then I saw that the whole set was cheaper on Amazon. So I bought the whole set. So I've still got the two that I bought originally. And then I've got the whole set. So these may be at some point given to someone to say, give it a go. But all I can say is I am 100% a carbonite. If that is a word, then I'm in. If it's not a word, then I just created it. And as far as the Faithful and the Fallen fans go, let's join together and become Carbonites. I'm also a Garçonian. I loved that character. I hope that John Gwynne is pleased with himself as far as that goes. I also loved Veristel. There's a lot of characters in here that you bond with. This series, sorry, made me cry. It made me feel things that I didn't know I was able to feel about books. I read a couple of books last year, and they brought tears, like the Lost Bookshop. That made me cry, and Found in a Bookshop, that also made me cry. I can't remember the author's names, but them two brought about emotions in me. But this series, the emotions that came out of me, I could not stop telling my family step by step progress of what was going on, and I was revealing it to them like I was trying to act it out, because the writing is so amazing. He completely takes you on a journey. The fight scenes are brilliant. They're so good. You're there with the characters. You're fighting yourself. You are that. You become that character. You are literally fighting within that scene. And then the only fault, let's say, I have, which started to sort of wane on me a little bit, was the story between McQuinn. Now, I must confess, all through the series, I was calling him Macon, just because personally for me, I actually preferred calling him Macon. So, but McQuinn, I think is his name, Lycos and Fidel. I kind of a little bit towards the end got to the point of where I was, can we just be done with this now? Can this situation just be done with? Because how many times is that going to happen? And then that's the situation. Try not to give anything away, no spoilers. How many times? That's just how I felt about it. So, but regardless of that, I adored it. I am 100% a Carbonite. I'm 100% a Carbonian. Garbonian. I don't know how to refer to that fan club, but yeah, Kywin, great character. I think in Ruin that she would come to the forefront and be a very strong female character in this. Brina, I loved Brina. I actually thought at one point that Brina might turn and go to the dark side of things, but no, she didn't. She stayed true. And the relationship, who can talk about this book and not mention the relationship between Corbin and Storm, and Corbin and Shield, his horse. Beautiful writing, beautifully written. Definitely a series I will at some point revisit. Absolutely, I will revisit this series. I loved it. Then again, Night's Book Reviews. Excuse me, I've got hair in my mouth. Empire of the Vampire. My daughter bought this one as well. I saw it before my daughter bought it because we both have a bit of a thing about vampires. I was raised in the 80s. I'm a 70s child. We won't get into that. I'm a Gen X. And one of my all-time favourite films is Lost Boys. I adore Lost Boys. Not the saxophone man, not the greasy saxophone man. There's no need for the greasy saxophone man. However, that is one of my favourite songs. But I digress. So I love a story about vampires. And I did read Twilight. I read the entire series of Twilight. I didn't mind the books. But then when the films came out, yeah. No, not for me. Not for somebody of my age group, I don't think. Don't mind them, but I don't think they were for somebody of my age group. But this is right up my street. Right up my street. The characters, Gabriel, Jean-Francois, Gabriel de Leon. I love the back and forth between those two, the conversations that those two have. I kind of wanted slightly more of their conversations, but this is so good. If you haven't read it yet, please give Empire of the Vampire a go. You will not be disappointed. If you love a book that is dark, that is true to vampires as they should be, which is cruel, because let's face it, they bite us and they feed off us, so they should be cruel. They shouldn't really be loving, and we really as a race shouldn't be lusting after them, but we do. I know I do. I know I wouldn't mind being bitten by a vampire. I would have a slight issue with the garlic thing because garlic is my favourite. And if somebody said to me, you'll never be able to eat garlic again, I would give it some time to think. I would be pause for thought. Could I really live without garlic? I'm not so sure. However, I would definitely want to become a vampire. I have a little vampire tattoo there. I can't really show it, but yeah, I love vampires. I enjoyed this immensely. I'm so looking forward to Empire of the Damned that's being released this month on hardback. So I'm not a fan of hardbacks, so I don't know if I will actually go and get it. I am keen to know, but I'm not sure if I will go and get it because it's hardback, and I find them a struggle for me to comfortably read. But this, it's amazing, and it's so worth every single one of those pages. I would not change a single page within this book. There is nothing where I would turn. The only thing I would say is I wanted more conversation between Gabriel and Jean-Francois. I just wanted more conversation between those two. But I loved, and the artistry in here as well, the drawings. The other thing I would say is towards the end, I was slightly confused. So I'm hoping Empire of the Damned will clear that up for me, because I'm not quite sure as to the situation with Celeste. I'm not going to say any more than that. Everybody who's read this book will understand potentially where I'm coming from. Or maybe I personally have missed something. But I was just a little bit, okay, okay, I don't quite understand that, but okay. So I'm a little bit lost with regards to the ending, but still, it didn't take away from how much I absolutely loved it. I loved the fight scenes. I loved the way it was explained. I loved the powers that people had. I was disappointed when at first it seemed that Gabriel didn't have any ancient vampire blood running through his veins, but then that may well change without spoilers. That may well not be the case, or it may still be the case. But yeah, great book. I really, really enjoyed Empire of the Vampire. It's definitely worth picking up. Definitely. And then again, I kept watching YouTubers and booktubers speaking of Robin Hobb. So I researched and then finally got the gist of the flow of her stories, like the Farseer trilogies first. So okay, I thought I'll give this a go. So I started with Assassin's Apprentice. It was okay. It was slow, which seems to be the general census, that it is quite slow. After reading John Gwynne and Empire of the Vampire, I didn't find that it was necessarily that easy for me to get into. So it took me a little while, because the difference in language as well, the difference in the way that it's written. So it took me a little while to get into this. But then once I got to the end of this, I couldn't wait for the second. So then we moved on. So I'd read Assassin's Apprentice, and then we move on to Royal Assassin. This book made me cry. Again, another book that made me cry. Why do books make me cry? Am I suddenly in my 40s becoming an emotional wreck? Because I've read other books that don't make me cry. I think I even cried at lessons in chemistry. So does that say something of the author, or does it say I'm just a big soft? I don't know. But yeah, this made me cry. And I think it is page, is it 562? It's definitely the chapter. Bear with me a second. It was a particular chapter where I had to put the book down, take a moment, and explain what I had just read to my daughter, because I was in awe of Robin Hobb. The first book took me a while. It took me a little while to get into this one as well. But then it started to flow, and then it started to make more sense, and then I was enjoying myself. I wanted to go further, then I wanted to carry on reading. And I came to, I think it's called Dark Days. I think the chapter is Dark Days. And as soon as I read that, like I say, I put the book down. I'm sorry, I'm trying to just confirm to myself that it is Dark Days. Or Darker Days. It's definitely something like that. I had to put the book down, and I just came out with a, whew. And my daughter was in the kitchen, and she said to me, "Mum, you okay?" And I said, yeah. What I've just read, wow. That was amazing. So if you decide to give this a read and you get to that chapter, I'm pretty certain it's either Dark Days or Darker Days. That just makes this whole book, I mean, it's fantastic. It's a fantastic book, and I couldn't wait to read it, and I couldn't wait to move on to the third, which is what I'm still currently reading. I haven't quite finished, so I'm on to the third, which is Assassin's Quest. You can see my little bookmark there. By the way, let me show you my bookmark. I'm very pleased with this bookmark. It's tarot cards. Isn't that just the cutest? I love it. I love that. So yeah, this is where I'm on now. I've read so far. Essentially maybe halfway, I think. It's okay. It's definitely not as good as Royal Assassin. Definitely not. Just purely that one chapter alone made that book for me. There didn't need to be really anything after that chapter. But then the ending of that book came. Again, wow. So then I had to rush onto Assassin's Quest, because I wanted to know, is everything okay? Is this the case? Again, no spoilers, but are we okay here? What's going on? That's where my headspace was at the time that I'd finished. Her writing is beautiful. It's almost poetic. When you're reading and you're in full flow, it's almost poetic the way she writes. I've absolutely loved reading these books. I wasn't sure whether or not they were going to be my taste. After reading John Gwynne and the fight scenes and the blood and the gore and the guts, and Empire of the Vampire with the swearing, and that's something that I love. I adore it. I can't wait to read Joe Abercrombie. I haven't read him yet, and I can't wait, because apparently he's Grimmed Outlawed, and I can't wait for that. But then going from that to Robin Hobb, who explains things in such an eloquent way, I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it, but I really am. I really am enjoying these books. They are so much fun, and the magic within this book, it's amazing. Now that will give a huge clue as to the chapter that I read. The magic is involved in that, and just the way it works out and how it's used. I was awestruck, absolutely awestruck. The circumstances are between Fitz, who is the assassin, and his wolf, which you will find. He becomes friends with a wolf who's called Night Eyes, and it's something that happens there, and it's just the most remarkable thing I've ever read. The most remarkable. I've read some things where I've been awestruck and I've been wowed, but that is just the most remarkable thing I've ever read. It shook me. It shook me, and I thought, could you imagine if just that scene alone was in a film? It would be, and then I was sat there thinking and trying to picture it into a film. I mean, I was picturing it as I was reading it. I was fascinated by the visual in my own head, and I was trying to explain to my family how I saw it, how I visualized it in my mind as I was reading it, and I was trying to explain it to them, and they actually got it. They were like, "Yeah, you know that. Yeah, wow, that sounds like it would be awesome." I think it would be. I can't think of anything else I'd rather see than just that one scene or just that one chapter played out in the film. I loved it. Excuse me while I have a quick slip. So yeah, those are the books that I've read in January. I've really enjoyed them. I'm very much enjoying being on this fantasy little rampage I'm on at the moment. And it's all pretty much Mike Book Review's fault, because I found him and I enjoyed his videos, and he has slowly but surely, in his own way without realising it, pressured me into wanting to read all the books that he's practically read. So therefore, this is why I have Wheel of Time. I also have coming a lot more fantasy books that are reviewed by Mike. It's his fault. I'm not taking the blame for this expense. It's Mike's fault. You can blame me if you like. If you've seen any of the books that I've read and you wish to read those, you can gladly blame me. But I can't be blamed for my own purchases, because that's due to booktubers I've watched. And secretly, I don't blame them. I love buying books. I'm okay with it. It's just my family who's not okay with it. They think I have an addiction and I may need help. I think they're probably right, but it's an addiction that makes me happy, so I'm okay with it. So what can I say now, really? I'm looking forward to finishing Assassin's Quest. Like I say, I'm halfway through, so I should have that finished maybe today, tomorrow. And then I don't know where I'm going to move on to. I also recently bought the first book of Malazan. I think I'm being quite brave with my book choices. Wheel of Time and Malazan. I think I may be pushing myself at 47 as to whether or not I've got enough time. You didn't hear that. I think I'm pushing myself a little bit in my 40s. Anywho. So yeah, those are the books that I've read in January. What I do hope for this channel is that you like my content, you'll like and subscribe, you'll join me, maybe in a read along. Pass on some book suggestions in the comments. I think I've got the big hitters. I'm still waiting for Joe Abercrombie. I have actually ordered it. I have actually ordered it. I've got Wheel of Fortune, the first three books, because I found them on Amazon and they're selling them in threes, and I like that because I like to read in threes or fours. So I've got the first three. I've read John Gwynne's, but I need to get John Gwynne's next trilogy. And then I have a few little odd standalones here, there and everywhere. I've also got the Grey Bastards that I've got to read. I've got the first book. But these are all going to come up in another video that I'm going to do, as long as this one does well, where I will be doing a book haul, and I will be showing you the books I have recently bought that I'm going to read in February, because I have an addiction, and Waterstones and the works that are the shops in the UK call my name quite often. I can hear them whispering. Yeah, so anywho, that's me. That's my channel. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I will see you through the pages.